Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the PG Show, where we talk about all things college football. Today, we got to run through some upcoming games this week. We got to talk about the OU recruiting news because that's always something we got to cover, and there's been a lot of slander around Todd Bates and more. But before we do that, please go ahead, hit that like and subscribe button. Let me know what you guys are thinking down in the comments below about this week's slate of games. Do you agree with me or do you not? Okay, the first place that we're going to start this week is Todd Bates has been under fire by Oklahoma fans after the loss of Caden McDonald. And I kind of want to just go ahead, look through the 2023 class, look at where we could realistically land, who's potentially still out there for us. Just give y'all a little update here. So right now, OU is currently sitting at number 7 in the country, as LSU has moved up to the number 4 class in the country. But it's okay. We still have time, and I still believe that Oklahoma is in prime position to finish with a top 3 class. So you guys have heard me talk about it on plenty of other shows, and you've heard me talk about it here. I still think David Hicks is going to end up in Oklahoma, and I think that we get his buddy, who is the linebacker, Damon Sanford, as well. They're both buddies. They're both from the same high school, and I think those will be 2 really solid lands. We all know David Hicks would be a really solid land for Oklahoma, so nothing really new there. I still believe that Peyton Bowen flips from Notre Dame to Oklahoma, and I believe that we'll probably get that news as little as maybe in the next 2 weeks. So again, not really any news there. No new news with Akana. I still think he lands here in Oklahoma, but I think he is taking a visit to Texas A&M if it hasn't already happened. So that's going to be interesting to watch there of how all of that unfolds. But recently, Oklahoma did offer a couple more people, one of them being a 4-star or a 3-star, 295-pound, 6'3" defensive lineman in Ashton Sanders. And let me tell y'all, this man is big, and he's really good and really strong with his hands. And you know what? That's the kind of guy that Todd Bates and Brent Venables are going to be able to take on the defensive line and truly be able to mold them and develop them into a great defensive line player. And that's somebody that you're going to need to be able to play that true nose tackle position on that 3-3-5. And so I think a pick like Ashton Sanders would be a great pickup, even though he's only a 3-star. Remember, and I said this in my last video where I talked about Todd Bates, but just because they're a 5-star guy doesn't mean that's going to always transfer to the field. Okay? Sometimes a 3 or a 4-star guy, or sometimes even those preferred walk-ons, provide just as much production as a 5-star guy. And the 5-star guys are great because they provide a lot of great content for me to be able to relate to you guys, right? Get you guys tuned into my videos. But sometimes these 3 and these 4-star guys are able to bring more to the table because, again, they're teachable, and they usually have sometimes some more drive and desire because they don't have the clout in their head about how they're going to potentially be a NFL draft pick or whatever, right? Like, they know that they're going to have to go work for whatever they want to go achieve. And so I just think that sometimes they have a little bit more dog in them. And I think a guy like Ashton Sanders is great. You see another guy like Marcus Strong. He is another 265-pound, 6'2" defensive lineman out of Lake Butler, Florida. He's recently coming on to the scene to a lot of schools. Not a guy that has been highly recruited, but all of a sudden the offers are starting to come in from him. He's holding offers not only from Oklahoma, but he's starting to gain some other Power 5 offers like Maryland and West Virginia. And so this is going to be somebody that I think everybody really needs to watch to just kind of see, hey, where is he going to land? Obviously, I think OU should be able to land both of these guys. I don't feel like you should have too much of a problem being able to land Ashton Sanders or Marcus Strong. I think there's a really good shot that OU lands Ashton. And in fact, he's even going to be in Norman this week. So, or it might be for the Oklahoma State game, but I think it's this week. So I think OU has a really good shot here to be able to help develop and strengthen this class it might not be flashy and it might not look sexy with the 5 stars, but ultimately, these guys that are lower down in the composite rankings, these are the nitty gritty guys that kind of help fill in a class where sometimes you're missing those 5 star guys. Ultimately, I don't think we're in it for Deal anymore. I certainly don't think we're in it for Ruben Bain. I think the Miami Hurricanes are going to end up landing him as he hails from Miami, Florida. I hope I'm wrong, but you never know. With recruiting, nothing's over until there's a signature on the paper. Now, we talked about 2023, and I think OU could realistically land anywhere from like maybe 305 to 310 ish. I hear a lot of talk about how OU is starting to really get involved in the recruitment of the 5 star offensive lineman Samson Okunolola or Okunolo. I might be saying his. I know I'm saying his name wrong. I'm butchering it, but Oklahoma is trying to get in that one a little bit, and that would be a huge pickup for the Sooners in this class. And I think if you land Samson Okunolola, probably puts you at 310 in the composite score rankings with Peyton Bowen and David Hicks, of course. I'm under the assumption that we're just going to get both of those guys. Yeah, it puts us at 310 if you put it in the class calculator. But listen, as great and as awesome of a recruiting class that we want this one to be, next year is going to be the year for Todd Bates and Brent Venables to really throw out your reel and reel it in home here, because you've got lots of guys that they've kind of been in with for a while, whether it's Edric Houston or Zena Umoazolu, Zulua, from Allen, Texas. And then you've got Williams Nawaneri. He's from Lee Summit, Missouri, which we have been able to recruit very well out there before. All of those are really strong edge rushers that if you're Oklahoma, you should feel very strong about. And those are just the 4 and 5 star guys. That's not even counting another guy like Danny Oki. I think his last name's Oki. He's from Tulsa, Oklahoma. He's homeschooled, actually. So you never know with him being that way and having all of these 5 star or all these Power 5 offers, he could definitely be a diamond in the rough. But then we go look at just our defensive linemen that we could go out there and get. You've got David Stone, who we all expect Oklahoma to be able to go land. You've heard a lot of talk around T.A. Cunningham, right? And does Oklahoma have the shot to potentially go land him? I honestly think that prediction should be pulled a little bit. I don't know how strong that connection is, especially with everything that's happened with T.A. Cunningham. If you guys don't know about that, go to The Athletic and read about that one. But you should feel good about the 4-star defensive lineman out of Melissa, Texas, Nigel Smith. You've also got other guys in this class like Eddie Pierre-Lewis, the 4-star defensive lineman from Tampa, Florida, Kavion Henderson from Leeds, Alabama, and Zadavian Sims from Durant, Oklahoma. There's lots and lots of talent on the defensive line for the Sooners to be able to go grab in the 24 class. And I full-heartedly expect the 24 class to land anywhere between 305 probably to 335, just depending on who they're able to land on the offensive side of the ball, whether that's at the receivers, at the quarterback. There's going to be lots and lots of players for OU to be able to go grab. But other than that, the slander that y'all have been laying on Todd Bates about not being an elite recruiter, I don't understand it. I don't understand why everybody wants to hate on Todd Bates so much, because I feel like Todd Bates, even though he's not landing the number 1 defensive lineman or top 5 defensive lineman every single class, the development that Todd Bates has been able to land and the development that Brent Venables has been able to provide, that should go leaps and bounds over the stars that they're recruiting into this class. But y'all are out here dragging them through the mud. And yes, I get it. Todd Bates and Brent Venables, they were able in 2020 to land a guy like Brian Breesy or Miles Murphy, right? But it's okay if we don't get the number 1 overall player or the number 1 defensive lineman in a class, right? let them go out there, let them develop, and let that talent come to you naturally, right? Because they want to come play for guys that are developing guys on the defensive line to go to the NFL. You're going to look, they're going to be able to point to Brian Breesy and Miles Murphy and maybe even DeMonte Capehart very soon. They're probably going to be able to point to them very soon and say, look, we coached those three guys at Clemson. We developed them. Look, they went 3 first rounders in the NFL. And you know what? Maybe that starts to resonate a little bit more with the recruits, but we will just have to see. Staying on the topic, though, for the Oklahoma Sooners, Baylor at Oklahoma this week. This is a big one for both teams, and there's a lot of conversation around, well, I guess a couple weeks ago, if either of these two teams would make a bowl game, which this is not where we were sitting at the beginning of the season. So Baylor comes into Norman, Oklahoma, 5-3, 3-2 in the conference, and the Sooners come into this game 5-3, 2-3 in the conference. So very similar, but one game away in the conference from being just alike. And Baylor's looking to beat Oklahoma to stay in the Big 12 title hunt, right? I do believe if they lose this game to the Sooners, they're probably out of it. There's probably not a good path for them to make the Big 12 title game. Now, I'm not saying there's a good path for the Sooners to get there, but we'll talk about that here in a second. Baylor comes into this game probably hitting their best stride of the season. There's a lot of conversation for, hey, can Baylor come in here and be able to do what they did to Oklahoma last year, just be able to completely shut them down? You have a Baylor team that has been extremely good in the running game, averaging over 200 yards a game, and a running back in Reese who has just been, or at least looks dominant. This is a Baylor team that, like I said, heading their stride and is going to play very physical with the Oklahoma Sooners. And this is a game where you really want to see what are the Sooners made of. Are they able to go out there and match the physicality of the Baylor Bears? Because that's something that they weren't able to do last year, and it cost them a game, a pretty crucial game for that. And so I expect Baylor and Oklahoma to come out. I expect this to be a really physical game. I expect to see a lot of pushing and shoving on those lines. And the key here for Oklahoma is, can the defense do, or the defensive line do what they did last week and stop and shut down the running game of the Baylor Bears? Because, yeah, Iowa State put up 308 yards last week against Iowa State. Iowa State put up 308 yards on the Oklahoma defense, but Hunter Deckers had to do that with 37 completions on 57 attempts. So yeah, with 37 completions, which mind you, a lot of those were not deep balls. OU was not getting beat deep. So with those being short passes and so many of them, yeah, you would expect for him to be over 300 yards. They were averaging 5.4 yards a catch. So, hey, listen, I think Oklahoma's got a really good shot in this game. If Marvin Mims is able to go out there, if he's able to get hot, if he's able to catch a couple passes, I wholeheartedly expect Oklahoma to win this game by 10 or 14. And come on, I would love it for Brent Venables to give it back to Aranda. And I have no doubt Lincoln Riley would probably do this if he was here. But I want to see him call a timeout with 1 second left so that we can kick a field goal. And, you know, everybody knows how that situation went out last year. The Baylor fans stormed the field, and Lincoln has to bring the players back from the locker room so that they're able to just kick a field goal. And we're not even able to concede at that point. So, but hey, you know what? If Oklahoma comes out here and they put up a good defensive performance, there's a lot that you can build off there, especially on the recruiting trail, because the recruits are going to be able to see that the Oklahoma defense is starting to mesh and gel, and that, hey, Venables and Todd Bates and the staff, they are able to turn this around. I do want to see Brent Venables get a little bit more animated and a little bit more involved like he was last game with the defense, right? You saw him animated last game. You saw him getting up and down the field with the team. I want to see that again. And then I want to see Eric Gray, right? Eric Gray is at 796 total yards. I want to see this man get to 1,000 this game. And it's definitely possible. It's not too far out of the question. Eric Gray is a good back. And he got a lot of slander last year. And it's not really fair because not a lot of the other people on this team got that. And maybe it's because he's a transfer. He's not an Oklahoma guy. Shout out to Ty for giving me a little bit of that one because he gave me some of that. That's Ty at Around the Table Sports. If you haven't already, go check him out. But Eric Gray, because he's not an Oklahoma Sooners recruit, it's almost like he doesn't get the benefit of the doubt as some of the other guys do. But Eric Gray is a really good back, and he's going to be a back that I think is going to be crucial in this game, especially since Javonte Barnes might not play. Ultimately, it always does come down on the offensive side of the ball to, hey, is Dillon Gabriel out there throwing the passes and running the offense? So hopefully the offensive line will be able to protect Dillon Gabriel a little bit more. As far as Blake Shapen goes for the Baylor Bears, he's a little bit like Hunter Deckers in my opinion. He still makes those mistakes. He has thrown for 1,800 yards this season, 13 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. I would like to see the OU defense be able to go out there and get 1 or 2 picks in this game, and that's something that I think that is definitely possible for them to be able to go do. Okay, if you haven't already, please go ahead, hit that like and the subscribe button. Really means a lot to me. It really helps us out as content creators. If you're listening to this on Apple, Google, or Spotify, go ahead, give me 5 stars, leave me a review. Let me know what you guys think, but I'm going to grab a drink of water while you guys take a time to go ahead and hit that like and the subscribe button. And we are back. So the next game up on the list to talk about is Tennessee versus Georgia. So we've got the number 1 team in the country versus the number 3 team in the country meeting up in Athens at 2:30 p.m. That's right. This one's not the night game. In Athens at 2:30 p.m. Central Time to basically take supremacy of the SEC for this year. Whoever wins this game, I do believe, is in the driver's seat to potentially go to the college football playoffs and meet with either Alabama or Ole Miss in the SEC West in this championship game. Right now, Georgia, by the FPI, is favored 74% chance to win this game. They're favored by 9 on the spread. The over-under is 65. And listen, this is a game that you've got to be able to love because it's really going to go one of 2 ways. If the Tennessee Volunteers find themselves in a just full on gun match with Georgia, right? Fireworks are ablazing. Tennessee's going to win this game because I don't think Georgia has the firepower to outscore Tennessee in a 50 or 60 point game. But if Georgia is able to bring this down to a defensive battle, even without Nolan Smith, then all of a sudden, Tennessee's got a problem on their hand. Now, I've heard it. Tennessee, their defense isn't very good. They're allowing 393 yards a game, allowing 21 points a game. I hear it. I saw what they allowed to Alabama. But in reality, Tennessee's got some pretty dang good players. All right, so let's break this down a little bit because I want people to understand what Tennessee has. Because Georgia has Brock Bowers that they're definitely going to try to keep passing the ball to and getting it to him to be able to create plays and create space for those running backs as well. But Tennessee's got a guy, a defensive back, Trayvon Flowers, who is leading their team in tackles. He has a sack on the season for 12 yards, right? This man is a force. He's all over the field. He has 2 interceptions. Listen, Tennessee's secondary isn't terrible because then they also got another guy in Christian Charles, right? 28 total tackles. He doesn't have any picks on the season, but listen, another guy, Kamal Haddon, 2 interceptions. Kind of catch my drift here? Tennessee is able to create turnovers. They have 9 interceptions on the season. And if they're able to go in there, they're able to apply pressure to the Georgia tight ends and, well, really, you just got to cover one wide receiver. But if they're able to go in there and they're able to apply a lot of pressure in the passing game and be able to get to Stetson Bennett, I believe you give yourself a fairly good shot to be able to win this game. As for Georgia, I mean, we all know what your defense is going to put out there, but how are you guys going to be able to play against the Tennessee defense? Like, are you guys going to actually be able to move the ball as much as we've been able to see you move it? Because when I go look at the Georgia schedule, I really don't know a whole lot about this Georgia team yet. Because outside of beating number 11 Oregon 49-3 at the beginning of the season, who has Georgia played? And Georgia fans, please hop down in the comments and let me know. Because I look at your schedule and I see Samford at home, at South Carolina, Kent State, where you guys allowed Kent State to be in that game, 39-22. The score does not tell you how close that game actually was. At Missouri, you guys only won 26-22 or 26-22. Luther Burden is a problem for Georgia, and let's be honest, if he doesn't transfer and he stays at Missouri, Missouri's going to be a problem in the SEC East as far as somebody that could potentially upset somebody. But then you guys have to play Auburn, Vandy, and Florida at home. Are really any of those challenges? So I think Tennessee's their first real test, and quite honestly, if you guys beat Tennessee, your schedule doesn't get any harder. At Mississippi State, at Kentucky, and Georgia Tech at home. Well, what do you expect? What are you going to get out of that game? Listen, Tennessee's having a magical year. They beat Alabama. You beat Alabama by 3. And I think Alabama's a little better than Georgia, but you're having to play Georgia in Athens, and that's a pretty tough game. But I don't want to hear the Tennessee hasn't played anybody. Listen, Tennessee beat number 17 Pitt at Pitt. They also went and beat LSU, number 25 LSU, which right now is a top 10 team, in Death Valley. And then they beat number 3 Alabama at home, and then beat Kentucky at home. I know what Tennessee is. And that's why I'm wanting to put my chips in the basket for Tennessee, because I've seen what they've been able to do all season. And I know you guys would love for me to be able to go pick up, the Georgia Bulldogs because, hey, they won the national championship last season and they haven't given you a reason to not pick them. Well, yeah, but I'm just having a hard time getting over the fact that you guys haven't played anybody so far in the regular season outside of number 11 Georgia, who at the beginning of the season when you guys first played them didn't look like they had it all together. And now all of a sudden Oregon has it together, but I don't necessarily think that game is 49-3 if you guys play it today. So I'm picking the Tennessee Volunteers in that game, and I think it's going to be another close one. I think they're only going to win it by 3, but it'll definitely be a game that we have to keep our eyes on, a game that I will be watching on my cellular device while I'm watching the Oklahoma game. Got to take a break there. Okay, the next game that we have to look at is Oklahoma State versus Kansas. Now, I've heard a lot of rumblings about Spencer Sanders not playing in this game. And if you look at the spread, hey, it's dead even, right? Now, the spread consensus has KU favored by -1. The over-under is 63. They're actually only giving Oklahoma State 29.8 points. So that leads me to believe that Spencer Sanders probably isn't going to be playing in this game. And you probably got the Gundy kid coming out there starting quarterback. And we all saw the pictures of his hands shaking. Listen, y'all got to calm down of not attacking kids like that, because we don't know how hard it is to be able to go out there and play quarterback as a true freshman, and what kind of pressure that brings to you. And so here's the deal. We don't need to go too far into this one. Kansas and Oklahoma State are very, very similar in terms of statistics. Oklahoma State is scoring 39.1 points per game. Kansas is scoring 38. Oklahoma State's allowing 31.1. Kansas is allowing 30.6, so just a smidge better. In terms of total yards, Oklahoma State 435, Kansas 419. Yards allowed, Kansas is a little bit better on defense, only allowing 439, while Oklahoma State's allowing 455. Now, when we look at the points per game scored, that is with Spencer Sanders. And quite honestly, I don't think Spencer Sanders is playing in this game. And if Spencer Sanders is not playing in this game, I think Kansas is able to go in here and get a win by 14. It's in Lawrence, Kansas, so you know the crowd is going to be hyped. Kansas is going to move to 6-3 and be bowl eligible. They're going to be 50% in the conference for the first time in a while. Kansas is on a roll, guys, and I am just super excited that the Jayhawks are being able to cause a ruckus in college football, because for so long they've been the joke of the Big 12 and the joke of college football, but the Jayhawks said no more. Alabama LSU. Loving this. Loving it, loving it, loving it. Brian Kelly is taking over an LSU program where once Nick Saban coached this program. And listen, I'm excited to see how Brian Kelly is going to play or coach in his first game against Nick Saban as the LSU head coach. For those of you who don't know the history between Brian Kelly and Nick Saban, Brian Kelly has played, I believe, Nick Saban twice in the national, and on the national stage. He played him once in a national championship and got rolled, and then he played him in the playoffs and got rolled. And now he's getting an opportunity to coach an LSU team where he's going to be able to get better talent. Here's the thing about the LSU program versus the Notre Dame program. The Notre Dame program holds people to such high academic standards, it's really hard to be able to bring some other recruits in there. However, LSU, a little bit more lenient. You can kind of get whoever you want. Listen, the LSU boosters, they're going to be able to help Brian Kelly roll out some great NIL packages. And we all saw the offseason joke of what Brian Kelly was doing with the recruits. But hey, something's working down there in Baton Rouge, right? Because right now they're sitting at 6-2, 4-1 in the conference, and the number 10 team in the country. A lot of people are doubting LSU, but let me tell you, don't overlook the LSU Tigers. They have a pretty sneaky good roster. Statistically, you got Jaden Davis not only just doing it all at quarterback, but he's doing it all on the ground for you too, which might be the most concerning thing for me. I just don't ever really feel confident about your team and what your offense could be when your quarterback is not only having to be the everything on the offense or on the offensive side of the ball for the pass, but also having to do everything in the running game as well. I just don't think that that's a good recipe for success. I didn't like it when Jalen Hurts and Kyler Murray were having to do it here in Oklahoma, but hey, I guess it works. So we'll see what Jalen Daniels is able to do for the LSU Tigers and Brian Kelly. But let's go ahead and let's talk about the defense for LSU, because a lot of people think that the LSU defense is not going to be able to hold up with the Alabama Crimson Tide. Well, here's the deal. There is a true freshman linebacker on this team that is not leading the team yet, but he's close, and Harold Perkins Jr., who, let me tell you, this man's a hoss. He is a Hoss Johnson, and he was very highly recruited, and there is a reason why he was very highly recruited coming out of high school. He has 2.5 sacks on the season as a true freshman with 36 total tackles. Harold Perkins Jr., he's going to be a problem for the LSU Tigers. And he's definitely going to be able to cause a lot of issues for Bryce Young, especially if he's able to get past that offensive line. Harold Perkins Jr., listen, he's really sizable at 6'5", about 210. He's going to be able to cause problems. Just saying, watch out. He could be something similar to Will Anderson Jr. I said it. But hey, listen, I think LSU comes out victorious in this game. I just don't think Bill O'Brien is going to be able to put it together on the offensive side of the ball for Alabama. And quite frankly, I think this is the game that Nick Saban tells Bill O'Brien to kick kick rocks, right? I don't think he's here after this season, especially if they lose this game. I just don't think he's going to be able to continue to call those plays for Alabama. We've seen this Alabama team be completely inconsistent this year, still rating, though, pretty heavily at the top in defense, only allowing 16.6 points per game. and only allowing 295 yards a game. But listen, I just think the LSU offense is good. I think that they're going to be able to put it together, be able to beat the Alabama Crimson Tide at home. I'm going to call this game another close one for Alabama. LSU wins it by 3. Okay, Texas and Kansas State. So this one doesn't make sense to me because a lot of people are picking Texas to beat Kansas State on the road. And the FBI's giving them a 61% chance. The spread's got them favored by 2.5. And I'm looking at this and I'm going, I don't see it because I haven't seen Quinn Ewers play well on the road at all. The past 2 games that we have seen Quinn Ewers on the road, he has not passed the ball particularly well, especially outside of the Bedlam game. I mean, he just has not played well. And listen, this Kansas State team is not the team that you want to have to try to get your whole offense and your quarterback situation together for. This Kansas State defense is suffocating. They play smart. They play on the ball. And listen, they're going to be all over the field. Those Kansas State backs are going to be able to be all over the Texas wide receivers. Bijan Robinson is going to have to fight for every inch he's going to get. And listen, that Texas offensive line, y'all are going to be tested in this game. So it's going to be interesting to see just how Texas is able to deal with a Kansas State team that really roughed up Oklahoma. And listen, they're going to go out there and they're going to try to control the time of possession. That's what they've always done with Oklahoma, and they're going to continue to be able to do that. For Texas, you have to be able to go in there and shut down Deuce Vaughn. Right? Deuce Vaughn this year, 154 carries, 902 yards, 5 touchdowns. And listen, last game we saw him just break out a monster run. And for the Kansas State Wildcats, you've got a quarterback situation now with Will Howard, and Will Howard's looking really good. And if we get the Will Howard that we've gotten the past 2 weeks, throw into Malik Knowles, whoop, doggy. The Kansas State Wildcats, they're going to be all over the place. The Kansas State Wildcats are going to win this game by 10. Mark it down. Texas loses another one. They're just – Texas can't get it together. Clemson, Notre Dame, I really don't need to get into this one too much. Clemson's going to win this one. They're favored by 4. I think they win it by 10. I really don't think it's going to be that much of a competition. USC, they go ahead. They move to 8-1. The line's 21.5. I think they'll probably win by 24, 31 points. Hey, TCU, 8-0, playing Texas Tech. Come on, committee. Put TCU in the top 4. Put TCU in the top 4. I really need to see it. Let's talk about these rankings that the committee put out this past week. The committee has put Tennessee at number 1, Ohio State at number 2, Georgia at number 3, Clemson at number 4, Michigan at number 5, Alabama at number 6. Wait, I haven't heard TCU yet. Oh, yeah, that's right. They had to put TCU at number 7. Number 7, below Alabama. So I could see putting them below Michigan because, yeah, Michigan might be a better team, but below a one-loss Alabama team over a TCU team that, mind you, has probably one of the better resumes so far of the season, where they've had to beat SMU at home, or at SMU, Oklahoma at home. You had to go to Lawrence, Kansas and beat Kansas with, a Kansas team that was on fire at that time and undefeated. You had to beat Oklahoma State at home, which at that point, Oklahoma State was on fire, playing really well. And then you had to beat Kansas State, who has just been a force for everybody. And yet they're being left out? That makes no sense to me. The committee got it wrong, right? I can see the point and the argument for putting Tennessee at number 1. Now, I do think Ohio State's the best team in the country because I think they're the most complete team in the country, but I can see the argument with putting Tennessee at number 1. We're not going to argue on that one too much. Clemson at number 4. I would probably like to see Michigan there or TCU, but you know what? I guess they're going to get the recency bias. They're going to live with it. I don't know how the hell Texas is number 24. I don't agree with that one at all. They've got 3 losses, so I guess if you can put a 3-loss Texas in the top 25, then you can put a 3-loss Oklahoma in there, right? And then Tulane's ranked too low, 7-1. North Carolina's ranked too low. There's just, I don't know. There's a lot of 6-2 teams that I think are too high, especially LSU. I think I would have rather put maybe a North Carolina in that spot. Listen, you know what? These rankings are crap anyways until the last week, so I don't know why I'm getting worked up about it and getting all in a tizzy. But listen, you know what? It's just how it's going to be. Oklahoma ain't in the top 4 this year, so I'm just going to have to live with it. But hey, listen, there's a lot of great games across college football this year. This week specifically, it's not the best week we've had, but we might have one of the best games of the year in Tennessee versus Georgia. So, and probably one of the longest off seasons that we had, which at least it felt like one of the longest off seasons, we're getting a pretty dang good season to overcome what was such a brutal off season for us. But if you haven't already, please go ahead, hit that like and subscribe button. Let me know what you guys are thinking down in the comments below. Remember, hitting that like and hitting that subscribe button costs you nothing, but it is extremely valuable to content creators like me, and I really appreciate it. So if you haven't, you guys are looking for another video to go watch my Jonah Laulu interview that I had. He is the defensive tackle for the Oklahoma Sooners, and it's a really good one. You get to hear a lot about what he's doing with the freshmen here and how he's getting to be a leader and being able to be a mentor on this team. It's great. Go listen to it. Go check it out. But until next time, Boomer.